Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's supposed to be pretty good, maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now last Friday we obviously discussed Double Impact, released in 1991, and is a superb Jean-Claude Van Damme classic that I feel like everyone should watch at some point in their lives. Now we go on to a guy that predated him and some people could say to be better than Jean-Claude Van Damme. And that is a guy named Jackie Chan. And, we're going to be talking about his introduction to the U.S., really. Released in 1995, Rumble in the Bronx. So, I've known about this film for a few years now. Obviously, when you start talking about martial artists, Jackie Chan's obviously one of the first you bring up, For me, there's obviously, three big ones. It's Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Jean-Claude Van Damme in terms of big martial artists. And honestly, before, I never really watched any of Jackie Chan stuff. I mean, I watched a couple of Jean-Claude Van Damme films, and I pretty much watched almost all of Bruce Lee's stuff, or at least of his five main feature films, except for Enter the Dragon. So I was really used to Bruce Lee's style and a little bit used to Jean-Claude Van Damme style, but not so much Jackie Chan style. And then finally, over these last few years, two to be more exact, I've been getting really more into him, and I've been starting to try and get some of his films. The only problem is that most of his classic stuff on Blu-ray is really fucking expensive to get. With exceptions like this, where it's a pretty common Blu-ray released by Warner Brothers. But I think this was distributed by New Line Cinema. So this is a pretty common title, and I think it's just because it's a pretty bare bones release. Because legit, if you look at the back, there is really nothing. And when I popped this disc in yesterday to watch the movie, it only came with a theatrical trailer, which is the one that I used on the social media stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty much you get the movie. I think different audio tracks and subtitles, and then the theatrical trailer, and that's pretty much it. I really do wish that at some point, either Warner Brothers or New Line Cinema, whoever owns this film, can make like a special edition Blu-ray that has a crap ton of special features and one or two things that I'll mention later. But for the time being, this is the best I could deal with. But anyway, yeah. This was made with a budget of $7.5 million. Some sources say around $8 million, and some other sources say about $10 million. But the most common budget that I could find on the internet is about $7.5 million. This was initially released on January 21st of 1995 in Hong Kong, because that's where Jackie Chan really had a big fan base, and so it was obviously initially released there. And it did, huge numbers. And then the studios were like, well, hey, this is really his first real English-speaking role. Let's release it in the U.S. and, other parts of the world and see how much money we can get out of it. So they licensed it to New Line Cinema and released it in the U.S. on February 23rd of 1996. Which here it made about $32 million. So with a $7.5 million budget, that's still really good. So far, I managed to figure out that a worldwide total, this film made about over $76 million. So I say that's pretty good. But the weird thing is that obviously, it initially came out in Hong Kong in 95, or January of 95, and here in the U.S. in February of 96. European countries got it in 90, I know that the UK got it in 97, so a whole 2 years later, and some countries even got it in 98, some even in 1999. So 4 years after this film came out, this film was still getting theatrical, newly released in theaters in like European countries, which is crazy to think about. But overall, it was a success, which paved the way for Jackie Chan to really, you know, become a worldwide success. I mean, he kind of already was before this, but this was the film that really made it like, yeah, this guy is like, he's going places. And this was directed by a guy named Stanley Tong, who I never really heard of before. I think he might have worked on some other Jackie Chan films, but besides that, I don't really know what this guy does. So what's in terms of the plot? Kyung, played by again Jackie Chan, arrives in New York to attend his uncle's wedding. His uncle owns a store in the Bronx, but he wants to sell it and settle down with his wife to be. After Kyung gets introduced to his uncle's neighbor, Danny, played by Morgan Lamb, he heads to the store and is surprised to learn that his uncle's wife is African American and starts to like her very quickly. The new owner, Elaine, played by Anette Mu, I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, I'm just gonna say this off the bat. So sorry if I butcher any of these names. My Cantonese is not that good. Anyways, Elaine arrives to finalize the takeover deal and is soon sees Kyung flexing in front of a two-way mirror. The following night, Kyung is first introduced to a motorcycle gang led by Tony, played by Mark Ackerstream. And after that, some of Tony's gang tries to rob the store, and Kyung stops them. But as tensions rises between them, both sides are pulled into a bigger situation that involves someone named the White Tiger. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting play, if you want to say that much. But it's captivating, and I like it. So, yeah, it's basically just a whole, like, it's basically just like one guy walks into a town, sees that there's a gang of bullies, pretty much, and he kicks the shit out of all of them and sends them packing. Although, obviously, this film does it with a bit of a twist and says, you know what? No, they're not. Yeah, they're bad guys, but they're not the bad guy. We have this other guy over here that's gonna try and fuck everybody over. So, yeah, it's like so many different things into one, and I actually do kind of like it for that reason. Usually I wouldn't really like that, but for the sake of this film, it actually kind of does work. So, yeah, we obviously open up with, Kyung arriving in, I think, like the main part of New York. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. And we obviously get introduced to his uncle, who I'll talk about more about this later. But the actor that plays his uncle in this film actually appears in a lot of Jackie Chan films, which again I'll go over later. And then we slowly get it's basically kind of just like for these like the first like half hour, it's like just setting up all like basically a domino effect of like all the main characters, because we get soon introduced to Elaine, who's going to be the new store owner, and then basically like Tony, and then the gang and stuff like that. So it's a pretty solitary I guess introduction. God, that was so hard. I don't know why that was difficult for me to say. See, I don't know. It's just kind of hard to kind of try and mention things about this film without sounding redundant or make this short, because it's kind of like, unless they have like a really good and kind of like complicated story that you could really go into depth with. Martial arts movies, it's really just like, okay, there's one guy and then he's beating a bunch of people up and then he wins the day. That's pretty much a good chunk of them, I would say. with certain exceptions. Like I would say, Double Impact is a very good example of straying from the norm, but not totally, and still being a martial arts film, but still has a very good and compelling story. And I would go the same for Lionheart, which ironically both of those starred Jean Claude Van Damme. Uh, but Jackie's films, on the other hand, are really more of just like those. Let's you know like let's just push our action as much as possible, and we'll have the story on kind of like the back seat. Which isn't entirely bad all the time, but it's just after a while it just gets kind of like, okay, you're using the same formula, like do something different. So yeah. But yeah. So let's go over the cast. So we obviously have the crowning legend himself, Jackie Chan, as Kyung, and he does good. He does good in his first real English speaking role. Before he was always speaking Cantonese, and he was always dubbed in before this. But it is good to hear his actual voice now. And like I said, he does good for his first real English speaking role. We have Francois Yip or Francois Zip as Nancy, who is the basically she is the girlfriend to Tony, who, like I said earlier, is the leader of the biker gang, but slowly starts falling for Kyung after seeing like, oh yeah, he's actually not that bad of a guy, and Tony's kind of a douche. We have Anita Mu as Elaine, who, as I mentioned earlier, is the uh, basically becomes the new owner of the shop, and becomes friends with Kyung, and is interested in him after he shows that he's able to defend himself. Um, she was, I think, before this, she was a dancer and I think she was labeled the Madonna of Hong Kong. She unfortunately did pass away though in 2003. I think to do like I think a lung cancer. I think so. It is a shame that she's no longer with us. But in this, she does fine in this film. And I should say that for all of the Cantonese actors except for Jackie, with because obviously this film, it was originally released in Hong Kong, so all of the Hong Kong actors, including Jackie, speak in their native language, which is like they speak Cantonese, whereas like Tony, he speaks English throughout the entire thing, and some other cast members. So when they released this in America, they did and obviously an English dub, and I think they might have gone Jackie for that dub, but I'm not exactly sure. It could have been just like some random guy. All I know is that this Blu-ray right here, which is from I think 2015, this is a completely different dub from the one that was released in theaters and initially on home media, like on VHS and DVD and Laserdisc and stuff like that. So before, I would say, I think if you have a DVD that was before 2015, you would have, I think, the original dub of this, like the original English dub of this film. But if you have the Blu-ray like I do, you have the new 2015 mix, which it doesn't sound bad, at least to me, but I haven't heard any. I haven't listened to the original English stuff. Actually, I don't know if yeah, I don't think they get it because it has. Yeah, I'm looking at audio right now, and it just has 5.1 English audio and Dolby Digital Espanol 2.0. So yeah, pretty much you're only going to be getting the 2015 English dub, and not the original or the original Cantonese. Uh, so Yeah, so I would recommend getting like an original DVD to hear the differences between the two. And from what I've heard is that the original dub works a little bit better than this Blu-ray mix. But I can't really make my own judgment on that since I don't have a DVD version from like the original, like with the original English dub. So I can't make that assumption or make my opinion about it, which one is better, because I've only heard this. But so from what I've heard from this, it's the actors don't do that bad. So see, like, because it's kind of hard for me to like, especially with films like this where it's like they're released in a different country, then they get dubbed over by someone else. Like, how am I supposed to really, talk about their performances when it's clearly someone else's voice? Um, but yeah. But I just want to take that. Just want to mention that, and then one more thing I'll mention after this. So I'll get to that. So we obviously have Bill Tung as Uncle Bill, who is the uncle to Pyong, and is having the wedding, and he owns the store before Elaine takes it over. And like I said about the uncle, the guy, so Bill Tung, he appears in a lot of Jackie Chan films. I think in actually all of the police story films, he appears as like I think like an inspector, which ironically enough, if I can get it out without wasting too much time, there we go. I recently, if you guys remember the Black Friday haul video that I made last year, I picked up from Barnes and Noble. I ordered it from online and it came in the mail. I ordered the Criterion Collection Blu-ray of Police Story 1 and 2. So, yeah. But as you can see on the back, I don't know how well that's going to focus. I hope I got it, but I think he's in the... Yep, there. In the second film, yeah, there he is. Because I think it doesn't say for the first film, but yeah, but definitely for the second film, it mentions him. So yeah, basically, I think in almost all, if not all, the police story films, um, he appears in all of them. But anyway, in this film, he does fine. So it's not bad. We have Morgan Lamb as Danny, who is, like I said, Bill's neighbor, and is like it's like a disabled kid in a wheelchair. He does fine. With kind of not to sound rude, but the limitations that he has to deal with as the character, he does fine. I will admit though, when he's supposed to get like emotional, the voice actor that they got for this English dub does not do him well. It's really like it's like 50s acting bad. It's kind of that's how, just to illustrate how kind of bad his emotional his emotional acting is. We have Mark Ackerstream, who plays Tony. He does great. Unfortunately, I think he did pass away a few years after this film came out, because I think he was a part of the Crow TV series, which, if anyone doesn't know, was like a TV series that was based off of the Crow from '94, which I discussed earlier. I think last Halloween, or something like that. Starring Brandon Lee. There was a few, I think 3 sequels, and there was a TV show, and Mark Ackerstream was on that show, and I think it was like some like accident that happened on set that killed him. So, yeah, he's no longer with us too. And then we have Garvin Cross, I think that's how you say it, who plays Angelo, who's like kind of like his right hand man, or like second in command for the gang, and this guy is kooky as fuck. Like, he is like comedic level, like funny, and it actually does kind of work for his character. But yeah, he does fine. So, you guys may remember that I mentioned that there was going to be one more thing that I was going to be talking about with this Blu-ray. Uh, what I hold right here is the American cut of Rumble in the Bronx. What I mean by that? Well, if I can hold it still enough, you guys may notice that it says 90 minutes right there under the Canadian rating. So yeah, this film runs for about 90 minutes, which isn't that bad. But if you actually look at if you get a version from Hong Kong from video, and if you just look up documentation of the Hong Kong version, that version runs at around 106 to 107 minutes. So the question comes in, why did they cut it down for the American release? Um, I'm not exactly sure why they cut it. They cut some footage out for the American release, but all I know is that it's a very common trait for Jackie Chan films to get cut down before American release. Because I think like after this they re-released Police Story 3 Super Cop as just Super Cop in America, and they cut out like humor in that, and along with like Armored God 2 Operation Condor, they cut out a lot of humor in that one as well for the American release in like 97, 98. So it's not an uncommon trait for for Jackie's films to get humor cut out, but for this film, the scenes that they cut out are really actually kind of important to the plot. Uh, I'm not gonna go over them in explicit, but ironically enough, there will be a link down in the description below to go and check out Oliver Harper's review on this film they made, God, like almost 5, 6 years ago, and he goes over all of the changes, like all the cut scenes between that were cut from the American release, because I think there's a like a video CD version from Hong Kong that's the original cut, or at least the Hong Kong cut, and which has all the scenes intact, and it's basically just a pure uncut version. Uh, I don't know how hard it is to track down the original, like the original uncut version on home media, and even if it is, like, even if you can find it, it's like, would it even work? Because it's probably like region 2 or region 3, or it could be on outdated formats like a video CD version. So, if you're just like a casual fan that doesn't really care about cutout scenes and just wants to see a Jackie Chan film that's good, just pick up the Blu-ray. It's relatively common to find, but you are a different cut whore. Try and find the original Hong Kong version, but I don't know how hard it is to try and find. So to go over favorite scenes, it's kind of hard to try and pick any scene that isn't all the the fight scenes, because it's a Jackie Chan film. It's like, what other scene would you honestly choose besides all the action scenes? Because honestly, this guy is a martial arts fucking master, practically a god. So I'm just gonna say that the most memorable fight that everyone remembers is when Kyung arrives at the gang's kind of like lair, and basically just trying to say, like, cut the bullshit, like, stop with all this illegal stuff. And Tony's like, all right, we'll fight over it, and then Kyung swiftly kicks his ass and then starts fighting all the rest of the gang members. That's like the most, like, probably the most iconic scene from this film, because so yeah, I would just have to say that. A fun fact, even though this film is set in New York, and they did shoot a few scenes in New York, this film wasn't actually shot in New York. It was actually shot in Vancouver, Canada. Like the opening scene when like when the truck is like going across the bridge and you get to that wide shot of New York City, that's obviously New York. And I think like a few other scenes, including the opening, uh, the opening to the U.S. cut is not in the original cut, which is kind of weird because I think it's the opening to this film, which to the U.S. cut, which is the like the plane flying over with the like in the sky with the credits rolling by. That's not in the original cut, and I think when Kyung and Nancy are escaping from the nightclub, that is not in the that's not in the original cut either. Or as according to the certain sites, cut comparison sites and whatever. But yeah, um, but yeah. So, oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the music. So in Hong Kong, this the music was composed by Nathan Wang, who basically put up the score for the score that he made was more like kind of like a jazz kind of like score, which it does sound great, but it's like I don't know if that were would I don't know if that really works with this film. So, and I'm guessing that the American producers didn't think so either, because much to Nathan Wang's surprise, his score was completely changed for the American cut, and it was composed by J. Peter Robinson, who has done some pretty good scores for films that no one really talks about. Like I think the biggest one that he did besides this is a new night Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which ironically came out a year before this. But he also did the score for No Escape, Highlander 3, The Source, and a few other films. So this guy has a good track record in terms of scores, and this score is good. I think the only problem that I would say for the score in this film is that it just sounds like a keyboard trying to sound like an orchestral score, which is like it kind of doesn't really work. But besides that, it sounds fine. Now, unfortunately, for anyone who does like the music for either cut, it is very difficult to try and find the scores for either. I think the American score, it was released on CD, but I think it only has 4 tracks because it was mixed with First Strike's soundtrack. So in total, only about like 9 minutes of music from the American cut has been officially released. In terms of Nathan Wang's score, I think there was like there was like a best of music scores, music songs of Jackie Chan. That was I think it has like 5 or 6 tracks on it, which is Nathan Wang's score. But I think it was only released in Hong Kong. So tracking it down might be very difficult to find on CD. But luckily that version, or that particular album, I think it has been released on streaming services. I know it's on Spotify. So if anyone wants to listen to it through there you go. But unfortunately, the American score I don't think it's anywhere on any streaming services. You will have to track down an original CD release in order to listen to it. Luckily though, some people have posted the 4 tracks on YouTube, but I think the last one, which is the Escaping Conclusions track, it seems to be removed because of like copyright claims and stuff, which honestly kind of sucks because that's the best part. That's the best track out of the American score for what we have so far, which it just kind of just stings that they just it gets taken down every time. So in order to listen to the entire score, you're gonna have to hunt down an original CD release. So that's pretty much about it. So let's go on to my final thoughts on Rumble in the Bronx, released in 1995 or 96 or 1995. I think it's good. I think this is a good introduction for people to get into Jackie Chan. And then, like, because this is a good solid 90 minutes, so it kind of goes by very quickly, and you get introduced to, like, this is a good introduction piece to Jackie Chan. Then you could probably go on and show him, like, show people, like, his other stuff, like, you know, the Police Story series, or, you know, the Armor God series, like, stuff like that, you know? So, you know, before we get on, like, before moving on to, like, any of these, you know, grandly masterpieces of martial arts films, show them Rumble in the Bronx first, and they will get a great introduction to him. There are a few scenes throughout that do drag, especially in the middle, which kind of just, for me at least, makes me just kind of like to pick out the remote and say, like, what, you know, how long it is until we get to the final act. And for that, I can't give it an A ranking, but I can certainly give this film a B. A solid B ranking. So, yeah. So anyway, guys, that was my review on Rumble in the Bronx, released in 1995. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you like this sort of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to get notified when future videos are coming out. I'm so trying to hit, 150 subscribers by the end of the year. So if we can try and do that, that would be fantastic. You can also check out my channel to see, more content like this, either by clicking on my profile picture right here or clicking down my username down there. Also, follow me on my social media pages, which are down in the description below. On my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter. If you follow me on there, you'll get notified sometime before before videos get released. Basically, notifying you guys that, hey, I'm having a video released today. Mostly for these movie review sort of things, because these are really the main things on my channel. Stay tuned for this Friday, or at least this weekend, for the finale to Season 5, which I'll be discussing Sonic the Hedgehog 2, released ironically this year in 2022. And I may have a special guest on there. I'm not going to spoil who, but it's someone that I've talked about very recently in terms of collabs. I'll leave it at that one. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this review, and stay tuned for this weekend for the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 review. Live long and prosper. Out.